What I want to talk about today, which I think will be super helpful, definitely in my market, definitely in a lot of the markets that I have coaching clients in, is making an offer using collections and kind of going through that dialogue with them. Going through, I'll set up the collection just so we can get a quick refresher on that, but also what comments I make and kind of what that conversation and what that process is like. I've been very successful at it. Actually, before I hopped on here, just got an accepted offer by using this exact same kind of thing. It's been very helpful in me kind of having, especially because I think things are moving so quickly right now, I don't have as much time to deepen or build that rapport with some clients because we'll kind of get introduced. We have a week to get to know each other. And then I'm like, okay, great, come out this weekend. And then they're like, okay, I like a house. And then we make an offer or we don't. But, sometimes I'm making an offer that first weekend. I've only actually known these people for 6 or 7 days. And I like me, and some of you guys tend to like me, but they don't really know me from anybody else. So I think it's really difficult in some of these markets where we're then asking, okay, great, I've known you for a couple days. Now I'm asking you to waive every single contingency and go some astronomical price above, but that's just the market we're in. So this has helped me, I think, kind of use or leverage the tech to help me have that rapport with them and help them have me kind of, I guess just trust me a little bit more and have it be backed by data in a very bite-sized, manageable kind of way. So that is what we're going to discuss today. And I think we have the chat open. Has anybody been using collections to go through these comps with their buyers? Has anybody tried this out before? Yes. No, yes, no, yes. Okay, good. If you say no, can you just type in the chat to how you review these comps with your clients? Do you just send them and have them review them on their own? Do you go through them with them? Great, okay. Send with a write-up and discuss. Okay. So do a CMA, Compass CMA, great, okay. So I'll give you kind of like a segue into why I started doing this, whatever it was, like 9 months ago, whatever it was. So I didn't like this text that I would get from people. And this is obviously was going to like depend on the person, but you guys can just raise your hand. Do you ever get like a text? You're like, we'd like to offer $850 with contingencies, type it up and can you submit it and let us know? And I'm like, okay, this is not exactly all the information I know of. And I used to say, sure, yes, I get a little bit of clarification and then just send it off. And I felt like, okay, I wasn't doing them any, service there. And I knew for a fact that I was just throwing them in to be unsuccessful. So I really like to go through this and I tested it out. I tested out the Compass CMA. It didn't work as well for me. And it's the same exact reason why I use a collection for sellers when I'm going to price their home, because it's so much information and it's so much information that sometimes doesn't follow or have a rhyme or reason for being the data that it is. And it can actually come back to bite us in what we're telling them or explaining to them that they should offer to be successful in that situation. So the collection, for the same reasons as with the sellers, organized. I have like 5 or 6 comps in there that are very specific to the house. I'm able to leave comments on there that provide kind of confidence in my knowledge of the market. And I can add in some broker information that I know in there that they probably can't see online. So there's a ton of really great benefits to this. And it also, I always will set up a call with them and I'll discuss it with them, or we'll do a Zoom, or I'll send it to them. And then, we always talk on the phone and explain it together. I do not believe in sending anybody a write-up or sending anybody data and having them try to understand it on their own. That's not their job. They're not in our field. And I just think that they can then go and make whatever conclusion they want. And there's no kind of back and forth follow-up that you guys can have right in the space right there. So that's kind of my process. I always make them a separate collection, which is what I'll show you today. It's separate before anybody asks. It is separate from the collection that I already have them set up on. I think, again, it makes it crisp. It makes it clear. If you don't get the house, just delete the collection, move on. If you want to keep the house, if you get the house and they want to keep that up there to check on those comps, great. You can keep it up, kind of whatever their preference is on that. But it's always a separate collection. I think it makes it just very clear. And that's kind of the process. We'll set up a call, we'll go through it, and they push back on me, absolutely. But then what I love is that I'm right there. I can click on one of the comps, and if one's in a great area, one's in a not so perfect section of the neighborhood, maybe there's wetlands in the back, or there's a main road right in front, whatever it is, I don't need to say, okay, great, now we're in the CMA. Well, let me send you the listing. Can you pull up the map? Can you do whatever? It's all right there in the collection. You have all the information. You have the price history from the back. You have broker information if you need to text them and ask for, a question. You have the map right there. You just have everything there for you. There's none of that like back and forth kind of situation that happens. And people feel like they are really getting, like they understand it at the end of it. And that's what I always say. I always use this line with like my clients. I want them to feel really knowledgeable and really empowered to make their own offer and really understand the offer, like get to that conclusion on their own. That's what I feel like my job is to really educate them. I don't like to hold all the cards, because then if something doesn't work out, it's like, well, it was Kate's fault because she held all them. She's the scapegoat. So here's all the information. I want them to be educated during this process. And then when they get an accepted offer, which hopefully they will in this market using this tactic, but they feel like they understood what they offered. I also hated when I would go in, they'd make an offer, and then they kind of get that remorse. Oh, I didn't really know what waiving that contingency meant. I didn't really understand it. We felt like we went too high. So I feel like this opens up a really good dialogue to make sure that whatever they're going to offer, maybe we're going to come to a conclusion in that conversation that the market's just too competitive for them in this price range. It's just going to push them too high. You also have like the mortgage calculator right down there at the bottom. And maybe it's just not going to be the best for them. Maybe they want to put their name in the hat and do whatever, but they know it's not going to be successful. That's fine. But then also at the end of it, I just feel like, I don't know. I just feel like they have a ton of information, and it's much, much, much easier for me than having all these emails and texts going back and forth. So hopefully I've sold it on you that you guys can watch me do it. So I'm just going to create a new collection from start to finish. I'm going to screen share, and then I'm going to go through exactly one property I'm in contract on, pull 5 or 6 comps, and then show you the kind of comments that I would leave. And then if you guys have any questions that you would want to ask me if we were in that conversation, I can kind of tell you how I would try to answer them in that capacity. So let me pull up home. Let me share my screen as well. Okay. So we're right here. You guys should all know this by now. So I'm right in Compass Home. I already started setting this up, so I'll just keep it here. You go right over to search. I'll just start it again. So you go right over to search, and I'm right here. So this is in, again, my MLS preferences. That's my way I like to search. Let me check this. Okay. I'm just going to go in and I'm going to pull comps for this house. So right here, I'm going to do, the house is like 135. So in this area, I'm just going to do it 1-2 to 1-5. I'm going to go down in and add the school district. Again, we're like a big school district area. You guys know that by now. And I'm actually going to pull like the last 360 days. And the reason I do that is because at least where we are, we're actually having the same kind of results, the same kind of bidding wars that we were back a year ago, not maybe as much as 6 months ago. If you were in like November, December, kind of during that, I feel like there were some anomalies to the data that we're not really seeing anymore now. So I'd rather pull back a little bit further. For appraisal purposes, we're probably only going to go back 180 days, but it's really helpful for me to just also show how the market has moved to my client during this process as well. So you'll see I have like 36 results in here, which is fine. I can go and sift through those. So again, go through, make sure that it's pulling things that you want to see in here, and you'll know the nuances of the area if you want to include something or not. A lot of these, I was actually really lucky. I was able to go in and see, and I know a lot of the situations behind the scenes. So there's a lot of information I'm able to provide to my client in something like this, that if they were just going on and checking on the comps, they would have no idea of. So I'm going to save this as a collection for my clients. I'm going to change their name, Steve and John's collection. Or we'll do comps for, what is it, 10 West? I think 10 West Lane. And I'm going to do review and handpick, the same exact thing. Create collection. So now we're in here. I still do the review and handpick because obviously 36 results just came in. I don't want them to see all of those. So then I'm just going to pop in and I'll share something that I think will help me tell the story I'm trying to tell. I'm not trying to own the market. I'm not trying to tell anybody you need to offer this. This is what, like, I'm really not like that abrasive kind of, I mean, you guys know me, but like, I'm not that abrasive kind of personality. I more believe in, here's the facts. If I can get you to that conclusion on your own and you want to be successful and the house means that much to you, here's what you need to do. If not, I am like so unattached to the outcome at this point, and I did not used to be. I used to be like the worst. I used to come to Chirag every single week and I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe they didn't get this. Why didn't they listen to me? And he would always say, he's like, you're so attached to them getting this house. And it's not mean for like the deal, yes, but it's also because I know when you know how someone can be successful and they're choosing to go the opposite way, it's a very frustrating situation. But the more you can kind of get yourself to like that freeing point where you're like, here it is. You don't want to make, the right offer. Well, if we're on like the 10th one or the 8th one, maybe I'm going to reevaluate if I want to continue to work with you. But you learn a lot about people and you learn a lot about their thought process when you're going through it this way with them. So I'll add in this. The house they actually are in contract on is right there. This one actually went pretty high, so I'm going to add that in because it's an interesting comp to have. Let's see what else. Sure, that one. 5 Ponds has too big of a lot. This is a really good one to have in there. So I'm like going through and a lot. First of all, I'll like preface this. You need to have the market knowledge to go in and have a really successful conversation with people, because something else that you are opening yourself up to is kind of you're there. So like you're on the phone with them. So if you don't know your stuff, like you need to be very prepared for these calls because they're going to hit you with a lot of these questions. So again, make sure, quick refresher, like this is why I go and see everything that comes on the market, or my mom does, and then she relates back to me, because having this market knowledge to me in this type of situation is like that hyper local knowledge is very important. Pretty much every deal I think that we've gotten done has been because we were able to explain what had happened on so many of the other comps that it led them to say, okay, like that's really helpful information. Now we understand that you're not just saying it, that's actually the reality of the situation. So quick refresher to go see everything you can. And I feel like that's pretty good. So now I have 7 in here. You can just go in and delete the rest of them. Maybe I'm just OCD. So now I have all of these in here. Any questions so far as to why I chose certain ones or why I'm doing it this way, anything like that, put them in the chat, and I have this over here. Okay. Question that I'll answer right now. What do you submit for compliance, a CMA? We don't have to submit anything for compliance like that. I know in some markets you do. If that's the case, then you can just use the CMA for that, and you can make your own CMA if you need that for compliance. This is really more so a tactic to get your client to make a winning offer. Why did I choose those properties? Mary, it's a great question. Let's go leave the comments. Okay. Sometimes I wonder if it's better that I don't curate the list, but let them see everything. Okay. Same exact reasoning that I have for the CMA. Too much data is not a good thing. And I'm the data person. I like to show the data that's going to actually tell the story, because there's always going to be these situations that are behind the scenes that could have caused something to close for less, or there could be a nuance in the area. And if they see that and they get their brain completely stuck on that one comp, they're like, but I can't believe 31 Todd Hill Circle did this. It's like, okay, well, now I need to have like this huge hurdle of coming up with, okay, why did that happen? Now I need to explain the whole entire story. I need to get them past that data point. So it's much easier for me to just put in the 6 or 7 that have very similar situations to exactly the house that they're going to go and be bidding on. And that should get them to believe it. And also, if you just have a really cynical buyer, first of all, I don't know if this is the market for them, because if you're going to continue to make, I don't know who wants to go out for like 8 or 9 weeks, continuing to write these offers. If you're writing a good offer, which Chirag will go through with you tomorrow, I believe, they take time. So be very honest with yourself. It's okay. If I've done everything, if I've done the collection, if I've explained the comps to them, if I've presented the offer in a perfect way, I've taken them to great houses, then it might not be the market for them. And that's, again, not being attached to the outcome of making sure that you see somebody close, because realistically, there are just going to be people right now that are not realistic about what they need to offer. And those people, I've had to unfortunately say, it might just not be the right time. And we've put things on hold for the next 6 months just to kind of reevaluate. So this is another time, just like with my questionnaire, that I'm getting to know my client. I'm getting to know kind of like their weaknesses and what they, or like their touchy points, kind of like, okay, like that's a really sensitive area for them with a certain contingency. So you learn so much through, again, this process. And on the first offer, being able to do this, I'm like, I immediately know their style. I know if there's other people involved that are going to be helping out the financing. So I understand everything. So now I'm going through here. So I would probably just say, so I'll give you like a little bit of background on my clients. They really wanted to be able to add in a pool, ideally, or they wanted to be able to have a pool already there. So any of these that maybe weren't able to have a pool, I want to maybe note that. So I remember this house had wetlands, if I remember correctly, in the back. And I think a pool was really difficult to do. Let me see if I can go back in and see if they said, yeah, I think that was the case. So I'd go in, if I didn't know for sure, I would just like go back in and check, but I would just say, let's see, on market for 22 days. You can add that in. Similar location to 10 West, not a busy road, more in a development setting. I mean, these people were like just introduced to the area a few weeks prior to this. One thing to note, wetlands in the back would have made it very difficult to get a pool back there. And to them, that means that this house is less valuable, even though there wasn't a pool already there. And then I would take them back through it. Pretty updated for them. They actually ended up going into a similar house. But one thing for them is that this kitchen is a little bit closed off. And I know that because I was in the house. So I would say to him, what do I have these people named? So Steve, the kitchen's really important to him. Note that the kitchen is all the way off to the right of the house and feels closed off. So again, I'm like explaining to them, like, I've been in the house, I understand, I'm looking out for things just as if they went to go and make an offer on this house. Continue to go through, needs a little bit of updating, maybe needs to put hardwood floors down in some of these areas, blah, blah, blah. So that's kind of something I would put on there. And I would say close for 1325, just to put it back in there. Maybe I'll go in, I'll put in the taxes. I'm sure these were what, 25 or 24, something like that. And I put in just data points like this. Also note, like maybe there was no CO for the lower level. Let's go check that. And I'm really going through this with you guys because this is like exactly how I would think about it. So with star exemption, this was that. So the tax would probably 21. I don't see it there as a CO for the lower level. So I don't even know if there was a finished lower level. So let's say there wasn't. So lower level, not finished. That's another really important thing for them. 4,000, whatever, roughly 4,000 square feet of above grade square footage. Great. Okay. So this one closed for 1325. Let's go back to their house right here. This is the one that they ended up going into contract on. We're in contract for very similar price. So on here, there's a lot of things I can go in and I can put in here. So first thing is going to be like the square footage. So this is at 1325. So it's very similar to the other one, but as you guys will see, they already had the pool in the back. So I was able to say and validate kind of why this price is what it is. So now you guys can kind of see how I go back through it and I start to compare. Let's take another one. This is actually a good one that I went in to see too. Different section, about maybe 10 minutes away in Walkabuck. One thing I will say is that this one's closer to the train. So say about 10 minutes closer to Golden's Bridge Station. For you, Steve, this would have been, you know, whatever. This would have been helpful, whatever for work. So I'm putting in like all of these things so that they can start to see, okay, great. Like what I want them to think about after all of this is, okay, so now I'm seeing that there's one section of town where maybe things are going to close for a little bit higher, even though they're a little bit smaller and the lot can't accommodate a pool, but they go for $50,000 more because it's closer to the train. So this is what I mean by educating them and getting them to really like have ownership over this. Like, and these are the conclusions that people are able to get to at the end of it. So I would go in and I'd add things like this. Closed for, 6% above ask in a bidding war in 48 hours. And again, I know that because I was in there. So I try to add things like that. Let me stop for a second and ask you guys any questions you have. No questions? You guys get it? We're good? No? Okay. So I'll keep going. Yes, you're good. Okay. So I'll basically just be going and I'll be doing the same exact thing. Angela, would you want to call the listing agent on everyone to check how many offers, etc.? Yes, if I didn't know that. A lot of these I had been either in the bidding war or I sold myself, or I knew a lot of information just from being in there and also just knowing this market like the back of my hand. If you're, and I know we don't always all have that luxury, maybe we go a little bit outside our radius. So yes, find out as much information as you can. How much are things in contract for? If there's a property that's active on the market that's maybe been sitting for a little bit, I would go there and I would say, because here's there's a perfect example. There's a house that's active right now. It's been on for 30 days, right around the same price point. So now your buyer says, oh, well, that one's been sitting. So wouldn't we be able to maybe get a deal on that one? Or is that reflective of what's happening in the market? Are things starting to cool off a little bit? But I know that there's 7 other offers on the house that they're ready to go and bid on. So it would be really helpful if I had went to go and see 123 Main Street that's been sitting on the market and explain to them why that one's been sitting. What is the handicap of that house? Again, that knowledge, I think, and you guys know I always use this word value. If you're providing people with value, they're not going to question you, but you have to know your stuff and you have to be able to back up why they need to be going, much higher over ask. Also, there's a certain level to this where I think we all have like a threshold within ourselves, knowing the market. When people go in and they ask us, do you think I'm going to be overpaying for this? I don't want to be responsible for that. I don't want somebody in 5 years to come back and say, how did you let me pay X for the house? So being able to show them and having them make that own decision, and maybe you go back in and you pull. I've had somebody last week and I think they said this house sold in 2017, or there was a house across the street that sold in 2017 that was very similar, 2019. Can you show me that house? If this house was in that market, how much would it have sold for? I can give them a rough estimate. But again, they're now feeling very empowered to have that information themselves and understanding the market. So they're making the decision. I don't want to be making the decision for everybody. I can lead you to water and here's all the information. Now knowing all of this, now knowing that on 4 of these properties that were very similar, very competitive, but maybe didn't even have a pool, everybody waived their mortgage contingency. Everybody did an info-only inspection. What do you want to do? What do you think would cause you to be successful in this bidding war? And then most people, if they want to be successful, say, well, it seems like I maybe need to waive those things. Can you explain it to me? Sure. Now we have an open dialogue being talked about their terms. So having these things in there and having these comments in there that are providing so much value to them will cause for a situation where you don't feel like you're going head to head with them. You're actually just having a really open and communicative dialogue about what the market situation is. And is this the house for them? And what do they need to offer to get it? That's where this always goes. But we're never arguing or fighting. And like all these things that I hear that people do, I'm like, just be calm, hit them with the facts, see if they're realistic. And that's your conversation. Let me see. Frustrating when listing agents not share all that info. Yes, that's why I think it's very helpful to go and see all these things so you can have that information yourself. We have pricing deductions in your comments or vice versa. Yeah, like I'll put pros and cons if that's what you mean. Okay, what if you don't know the info? How long does it take to track them down? Totally depends on the agent. But use context clues. So like put any information in there. And honestly, if you feel like you can't this might be a hot take. If you feel like you can't make a collection like this, maybe you're too outside your wheelhouse on that offer. Sorry, I'm just going to say it because this would be my expectation of my agent to be able to provide me with this type of value when I'm going to make an offer, especially in this market where I'm being asked to make, such a high offer, waiving all my safety nets. Let me show you guys the mortgage calculator. So if I was in here, I would scroll all the way down. And then this is it right down here, this payment calculator. And something that you can be changing is this interest rate. When I talked about this like 6 months ago, I was putting the information in there, like note that, you know, when whatever 43 Todd Hill, whatever it was, circle closed, the interest rate was at 4%. And here's the difference in that payment. I don't know if that's super helpful anymore right now, because I feel like we have enough comps that have been dealing with these rates now. So I don't know if you really need that anymore. If you feel like that's helpful, then yes, you can go and compare the monthly payment for them. But I think people have been kind of well adjusted to this at this point. It's April. I feel like we've been dealing with this for like 5-6 months. So this is where I'll go in and I'll put that in there. And you can go in and add their, you know, their monthly payment. This is how much it would be. This is how much it would have been, whatever. So you can use that in whatever capacity. I don't know if it needs to be used right here too much in this specific scenario. How do you protect your buyer against a bad appraisal? You guys know the information. I don't know if there's really any protecting exactly in there, but giving them the information. If they're waiving the appraisal, making sure that you're really clear with them. This is like what I mean by letting them come to this conclusion on their own. I do not want to be responsible, or I'll never be responsible. I do not want them to view me as being responsible for an appraisal coming in low. If it looks like their appraisal is going to come in low, I'm giving them that information. If you're still good with that and you still have the cash to, you know, close the gap, or if you're putting down a substantial amount, great, but you're assuming that risk. I think a lot of agents right now are trying to like almost protect their buyers, or trying to get deals done by, I don't want to say withholding information, but sugarcoating situations. Like, this is the situation. You have to give them the facts and make sure that they're very educated as to the situation that they're going into. That is more important to me than getting, you know, 10 deals in the next month. What do you tell them when they ask you how much over they should bid? So this is using all the comments in here. If you see that 8 of these closed for like 8% more, or if you see that one was really low and then it closed for much higher, then I would say, okay, well, maybe they priced it a little bit too low. So that's why I think putting in all of these price per square foot is very important. And ultimately, like, I'll just say right here, and I think we could all agree, 1325, 1450, 1415, 135, 1499, 1495. They're all in the same range. So if someone came in here, Steve, let's say, came in and said, I'm going to offer 1-1, he'd probably himself be a little bit embarrassed because he doesn't see anything over there in that range. So if you put things in, this is like what I mean by like kind of drawing it out for them and leading them to water. He knows right here, okay, maybe these were a little bit bigger. Maybe they were a little bit more updated. Maybe they were 10 minutes closer to the train. So let's give or take 50,000 to 100 for those things. He wants to bid at something like 135. He sees a bunch of these. I tell him that 31 Todd Hill was a really good comp. Yeah, I think he knows that, yeah, I'm going to be bidding at least ask on this one. And maybe I'll need to be competitive with my terms. So I've already kind of said it without having to say it, just by the comps that I've added in. And how does the info, okay, and you guys got to go, I know it's 10 o'clock. How does the info go out to the client? Is there another step? Just invite them into the collection. Same exact thing as before. And that's another reason why I like to use this collection, because it's something that's really familiar to them. It's something that's familiar to all of us. So it makes it really easy just to be using the same kind of tech that they're already used to, rather than having to send out, you know, that whole CMA and having them have to get used to reading that. And where am I looking? The text looks a little bit small. So I think this is just a very easy, simple way of getting the information over to them. Okay. All right. Well, I'll let you guys go. Any questions, please write into us, and I'll be on again at 12:30 if you want like another refresher of how to do it. We talk about the same thing, but that's it. Oh, hold on. Sorry. I'll be putting up expert mentor. Okay. Never mind. Nothing. Just something's being put up. Okay. Thanks, guys. Bye.